Well, John, I want to introduce our next guest. Marita Noon is the Executive Director of Energy Makes America Great. She also writes for various publications. I'm holding one of them in townhall.com, just coming out on July 22nd. You can see her article, The Greenies' War on Green Chili Peppers. So we're going to get into this, and then we'll come right into the First Solar in a second. But I want to welcome you, Marita Noon, to the Final Say radio show. You're on with the hosts. I'm Brett Rappaport and John Rappaport.
Hi, Brett and John. It's a treat to be with you today. Thank you.
Oh, welcome.
Well, it's great to have you. Now, this was a very interesting story, and I want to tell you why, because you started off talking about New Mexico, and you mentioned all the Westerns, and I love all the cowboy movies, and I've probably seen every one of them God knows how many times, and you're talking about the same area that they filmed all these wonderful movies for all these years, and, you know, it's interesting, and I also didn't know that New Mexico, or this area, was the only place that made this green chili. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct. There's a very specific green chili that New Mexico is known for, and it is probably our one and only, but certainly our largest export from New Mexico to the rest of the country, and in fact the rest of the world, is a very specific type of green chili that is grown in Hatch, New Mexico, and that's kind of a famous thing. People come from far and wide to buy their green chilies in Hatch, New Mexico.
And well, you pointed out it here, including McDonald's.
Yes, I mean, in New Mexico, green chilies are so ubiquitous with New Mexico that all the McDonald's serve. You can order green chilies for your hamburger in New Mexico. Perhaps not in the rest of the country, but in New Mexico, you can get green chilies on your hamburgers in McDonald's and most every other restaurant, but even McDonald's.
Okay, and so you've pointed out in this article the original fight starts off around 1940 with the typical land grabs that we had in those times, where hundreds of ranch families were let's just call it what it is, evicted from this Tularosa Basin area, and as you've pointed out, we're all familiar, if we've seen the movies, of what the area used to look like. And we've put up all kinds of federal Army bases and National Wildlife Refuge and New Mexico State University. So what's the problem today? Why is this a story now?
Well, it's a story, and why it's something that you all in New Jersey should care about is that what is happening is this is a part of a much bigger policy of federal land grabs. And the bottom line is the federal government, and has, particularly for the last couple of years since the Obama administration, has really ramped up the takings, really, of lands from private use, from oil and gas development, from farming and ranching, and really trying to lock up these lands so that they are not usable for anything that is productive development. They want to kind of lock them up and put them in a sanctuary of sorts. But the problem with this particular piece of land in New Mexico, the story about the green chilies is really just kind of to catch your interest, because the greenies are, their crusade is going to hurt the green chilies, so it's just kind of a fun lead-in. But the real story about this is that what is happening for years, the environmentalists have come back and tried to take this particular piece of land, and each time they come back, whether it's with a different congressman or a different senator or a different approach, they have failed. But every time they come back, the piece of land they want grows and grows and grows. And right now what we are facing is the potential of the President Obama, signing via executive order, putting this land out of commission for productive use through naming it a national monument. Now, this is, in theory, this might be a good thing, but this particular land, what it really does is provide unimpeded access for illegal immigrants to get deep into the United States through protected lands. These lands protect the illegal immigrants, but prevent the Border Patrol from going in, because once these lands are set aside, mechanized vehicles, which would mean the Border Patrol and trucks chasing the illegal immigrants and carrying drugs, etc. Once this happens, the Border Patrol cannot go in and chase and try to rid us of this activity. And that's really, I believe, what the story here is, that is hidden in, let's make this a national monument. But when you look at what this really does, it's a very scary state of affairs for everyone in America.
And just to put this in a perspective, because I'm glad you brought it up regarding border security, for those of you who don't know, Hatch, New Mexico is located a short drive above Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is one of the
Correct.
few noteworthy towns in the southeast corner of New Mexico. From Las Cruces, you can look over the border and see Juarez, Mexico, which is just a city that's absolutely riddled with violence. And on the coast there, or I should say the coast, on the border, the Route 10 parallels for, 25, 30, 40 miles or so right along the edge of the Mexican border. And I've driven Route 10 up to Las Cruces in the past for business reasons. And I'll tell you what, it's a bit of a scary drive. When you're looking over the border and the things that you see, when you see this kind of stuff firsthand, you realize what's going on at the border, and it is quite scary. And I'm glad you brought it up from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's really what the real story is here. And the scary thing is that if the president chooses to make this land a national monument, which his predisposition is toward that. He likes to use executive orders. He set out early in his presidency to say that he was going to make more space national monuments. And in this economy, are we clamoring for more national monuments? I don't think so. But if he does this, it will put farming, ranching, and natural resources off limits, but yet open the door for illegal immigrants and drug trafficking primarily.
And national parks and national monuments are part of the greatness of this country, but these are decisions that cannot be made from a political perspective. They should be made with a much greater consideration for which lands, who's being harmed for it, and does it really achieve the greater good, or is it just another political tool, which is far too often how Washington works.
Now, I've
exactly.
read. I'm sorry. I was going to say I've looked at enough of the UN proposals and Agenda 21 pamphlets and things like that about this idea of sustainable developments, and to me, it's almost like it's a government type plan by certain people in the government, where if we swallow up enough land and push people into the center cities, they're accomplishing that. It's kind of aiding the accomplishment of that goal.
Yeah, that is exactly what this is. And in fact, if you were to go to townhall.com and look at my column and read some of the comments from people who have read the column, that very thing that they're commenting on, they're saying Agenda 21, Agenda 21, Agenda 21. And that's a very definite concern, and that's what this is a part of. And it's something that people are not aware of enough. And so, in this rural New Mexico community, this can easily just go unnoticed, and boom, it's done, and we have absolutely no recourse on it.
I did print out your article, and now I have to go reprint it because I got to see those comments.
Well, when you just do the print, they don't take the comments with it, but the comments are very interesting. And in fact, I'm looking at one right now. One says, how do you stop a president with a proclivity for executive orders? Make him look bad. Get out with your children and your chilies and protest. Write every news outlet out there. And it goes on. I mean, that's really the only recourse we have with executive orders is to try to shame the president, draw enough press to this. And we have seen historically that this president is susceptible to shaming and to public pressure. There are cases where he has backed down on certain things or reversed on certain things. And, I know this seems like a silly little piece of the puzzle, green chilies in New Mexico, who cares? But it is one of those things that I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to draw some attention to this because it is a part of a much bigger project.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we only have a few minutes left, so I do want to get into what you've written about the First Solar And my gosh, this is just in a long line of these companies that we've given these massive loans to. I mean, how many other small businesses would love to even get a $1 million loan or a $10 million loan, let alone billions? And this story on First Solar is incredible.
It is, and I appreciate you saying that. This kind of gave me a headache trying to write it because there are so many pieces to this. I write 2 columns a week for townhall.com. Every Sunday, I write kind of a news-based energy story, which the green chili story is part of that. And then midweek, which sometimes is Friday, and sadly sometimes midweek is Saturday, but I write an additional column a week on what I'm calling the green energy crony corruption story. And we have profiled companies such as First Solar, which is this week's. We have profiled companies such as Bright Source Energy. We're looking into Abound Solar, which is gone. That'll be the next one, which has gone belly up. All these companies that are getting billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies, and every one of these companies have numerous connections. We found that almost 85% of the companies that got these green energy loans have connections to, direct ties to President Obama, the White House, which can mean Biden, and or other high-ranking Democrats such as Harry Reid. And so every week we're kind of peeling the curtain back on this story and exposing a little deeper into this green energy crony corruption story. And I say we because I'm working with a researcher who has spent 3 years researching these companies, and her name is Christine Lakotis, and she's got a blog for anyone that really wants just to kind of be immersed in this stuff. She has a blog called the Green Corruption Blog, and she and I are working together. I'm kind of the writer, the communicator, she's the researcher, and we're working together to get this message out.
So, Marita, this is John Rappaport. So this is an area I know an awful lot about. I've done numerous startup and technology companies. I currently chair a nonprofit in the energy sector that's focused on a standard for how consumer devices could more intelligently connect to the grid. And this is done. These are things that are done not with the government's hand, but with companies getting together, a lot of small and some large companies, and figuring out how to solve problems. But one of the things that's bothered me, especially throughout the stimulus spending in the utility sector, and again, I've lived this day in and day out, 75-plus-hour weeks for years now. And the amount, you use the word cronyism, and I think that's extremely important to point out. Forget the argument whether you're for or against stimulus in the first place. So let's just park that aside and say stimulus is a reality. The fact of the matter is, when you follow the money trail, far too many of the companies who receive huge amounts of money do have either one or two or both. They either have a very significant lobbyist firm who many small, in fact, almost no small companies can afford to pay for, right? So the new innovative companies who actually need the money very often have almost no access to it. And the companies who are getting this money, in many cases, are companies who have phenomenal balance sheets. They just happen to have friends in the right places in Washington. And crony capitalism, which, by the way, is a common complaint from the left, is alive and well, and it's absolutely sponsored wholesale by our current commander-in-chief.
Yeah, and when you look at this, you see that it isn't really about the energy, because most of these companies are not viable operations. They have junk bond ratings, and they're companies that you and I, your listeners, taxpayers out there, we would not voluntarily invest in these companies, because you look at the numbers and you go, I'm not doing this. Now, they do all have investors, such as Ted Turner, who's invested in First Solar, but they are investing because they've got this government loan guarantee for billions of dollars, $3 billion for the First Solar project, and they feel like, okay, well, we can't lose because we've got this government money coming in. But yet they do lose, as we've seen with the many companies that have gone bankrupt that have received these loans from the government, which is us, our taxpayers. I always want to point that out, that when you hear they're getting a government loan, it's you and me who are paying for this.
Well, and I think the point that people should take away from your article is that the word loan is used, and it's not that there's not sometimes a return on that investment, but very often the term loan is really just another way of saying flushed money, monies that we're borrowing from China. I mean, essentially, look at Solyndra. We borrowed $500 million. So assume you borrow $500 million from China. By the time we pay that debt back, one can only imagine what the net cost will be. And all we did was borrow money from China to throw it in the toilet. And by the way, China is
exactly.
market anyway.
And the interesting thing, or to me, one of the many, many interesting, there's so many interesting pieces to this story, is that they repeatedly use the line, this is to help our energy independence, to stop using so much oil from the Middle East. And, you know, we all want energy independence. We all are unhappy that our dollars are funding Middle East terrorists. But you know what? These green energy projects do zero toward that goal, because all of these green energy projects produce electricity. And in this country, we are already electricity independent. We do not import coal. We do not import natural gas. We have tons of uranium in this country. We have everything we need in this country to provide electricity for centuries to come. So when they use the excuse of, oh, well, this is to help foster energy independence, that is just total pulling the wool over the eyes of the public. It could not be further from the truth.
There's also an underlying thread here that affects jobs as well. So the coal industry has been decimated. Now, granted, coal is one of the dirtier fuels out there, but what's important to note is it has been the backbone of U.S. energy for many decades now, and the coal industry has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to make the smokestacks, to add scrubbers, so that the quality of the air has gone up enormously. And that's not to say that there's not still things that are coming out, but let's face it, windmills are decimating our wildlife as well, right? They're chopping up birds. Yeah,
there's numerous problems. There's numerous problems with the windmills, and I'm glad you kind of clarified when you said coal is one of the dirtiest fuels out there. Yes, in its raw form. I've been out touring. I'm currently in the state of Kentucky, and earlier this week I was underground in a coal mine in eastern Kentucky, and on Tuesday I was touring a surface mine, watching the actual mining operation, viewing reclamation sites and all that, so I can see that firsthand. And yes, if you just you take a pile of coal and you light a match to it, yes, it is dirty. But modern technology is such that we can burn coal cleanly and efficiently and economically, where on the other options, I mean, we could go on forever, but I believe we have a time limit here. I'd be happy to talk with you on an unlimited time frame about this, but nobody probably wants to hear that much. But the other options, wind and solar, for example, they are inefficient, uneconomical, and ineffective. They don't work 24/7. They cost way, way more than coal and or natural gas or even nuclear does. I mean, so we've got a policy in this country. Our president has an energy policy that is the antithesis of what has made companies great. Take, for example, Costco and Walmart. They have become great companies based on a premise that is the central to America, and that premise is use more but pay less. President Obama's energy policy for this country is use less but pay more. And when you look at the countries that have the greatest human health and the most material wealth, they are the countries with the high energy consumption. So you have to say to yourself, what is our president's motive when he is trying to force America into a reduced energy environment?
Well, his motives are clearly tied to the liberal progressive agenda to do exactly what you're saying, to increase the cost of things that they don't like and make people use less. They want They want people in smaller centers conserving the use of all these energies because they feel like it's the right thing to do. And I just have to point this out. And the United States economy became the giant it is because it was grown on cheap energy. If we didn't have such cheap energy, we would never have been a nation that we became.
Well, Gordon
and why
Gordon
do we
Moore.
have cheap energy?
Yeah,
oil, coal, gas.
Yep.
Gordon Moore, who is essentially the intellectual godfather from Silicon Valley. Gordon Moore was out there recently with all the talk at a large energy conference last year, with all the talk about green energy, and he got up in his keynote, and the underlying thread of his note was, for this country to reclaim its greatness, it doesn't need to think green, and it doesn't need to think how we can use less power. It needs to think how we can create and develop new sources of power that are so cheap that people can have, it's just endless supply. It falls like rain from North Carolina does in recent weeks.
Yeah, and we will have many new sources of energy available, I believe, but we have no energy shortage. Because of hydraulic fracturing, multi-stage hydraulic fracturing, we have this new abundance of natural gas that has made it cheaper than it's been in 20 years. And if we could access our oil resources, we could see the same kind of price drop in our oil resources. So we have no energy shortage at all. And as we, in hundreds of years from now, as those resources do dwindle and probably eventually run out, there will be new things, like you've said, that are developed that will be available for us.
So, Marita, I'd love to have you back on and dive into this subject a little more. And there's a particular area of interest to me. I've spent the better part of a year and a half building a software company that's focused on delivering demand response solutions. And there's
did
a
you build it yourself?
No, Obama helped me all away. Right, I don't know what I would have done. 75 hours a week on a short week, and who do I get to thank?
President Obama. I'm sure that was the first on your list.
Exactly.
Now, Marita, I'm sorry.
What people don't realize about this is I want to complete the point on the coal before we let you go, is the thank you that this president has sent for all these coal companies spending billions and billions of dollars from their bottom line to scrub the stacks and take 85 to 90 or 95% of the pollutants out, is to shut them down wholesale, replacing them with green energy, which I'm okay with to some degree, except for the fact that the green energy is highly intermittent, the current sources. The intermittency, and again, I know this well because I'm building software to solve the problem, the intermittency is such that you only have about 30% of the power factor, and we can explain that at some point. Let's just call it efficiency. The net result is that we're now having states like California having to build significant numbers of gas plants so that they can keep up with the intermittency of all the coal we've taken offline. And
why don't we just build a gas plant in the first place?
Right, and where are we getting the gas from? Fracking, which they also don't want. So, this is... You
get down to they don't like anything.
They don't like it. It's a game of unintended consequences, and America is losing. So I'd love to dive deeper in this subject. I think it'd be a great section, and hopefully we can have you back soon and dive in a little deeper and educate people on a little bit about the sausage factory. Just enough so they can maybe make better decisions when they go into the voting booths.
Yeah, and that's the purpose. That's really the goal of my book, Energy Freedom, available through Amazon.com, is to provide that kind of that introductory level understanding of why energy is important to America and what will we look like in a constrained energy environment.
Great. Marita, before you leave, how could people find you? Do you have a website?
Of course. I'm on Facebook, Marita K. Noon on Facebook. Energy Makes America Great. .org is the website. Google my name, Marita Noon, and townhall.com, and you will find the plethora of energy issues that I address there on a weekly basis.
Okay, and we'll ask you to do the same. Check us out on the Final Say radio show on Facebook, and check out our website, TheFinalSay.com. We will certainly help you out by posting up some of your articles and things like that, and we will invite you back to be a guest on our show.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have a posting on my Facebook page right now saying that I was on the air with you.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Final Say radio show. We look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you.